Welcome to the Path Podcast. It's Wednesday, January 11th. I'm here with Auk as usual, and today I'm really happy to say we have Alan of Mountain Bike Alan fame with us. Thanks for being here, Alan. Good to see you, Auk.
Hey, Alan.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Stoked. We've been talking about this for a while.
Stoked.
The honor's all ours.
All on this catty corner of the bench.
This axis.
Jumping right into some shop news, and then we can really get to know Alan a little better. We have that customer appreciation ride that was scheduled for this Saturday. It's rescheduled to the 11th. It's February 11th because of rain. So mark that on your calendar. We're going to ride Oaks in the morning, and then I'm going to do a barbecue here. And I think Jeff Miller is going to help me out. He was on the podcast a while ago, too. I got to make sure he can make the rescheduled date.
Ooh, ride in the Oaks. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a 9 or a 9:30 ride.
Right.
Check on the ride schedule of our website. And then Dawn Patrol ride every other Tuesday at 7 a.m. Lot C at Irvine Park. The kind of 2022 bike overstock sale rages on. And kind of fun.
How has the Kona buying and shipping?
It's been going good.
Yeah,
It's been generating a lot of interest.
Has that helped the 2022 bike sale?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has. And, shout out to Eric in New York State. Thanks for getting a Rocky Mountain Element C50 from us. I like to do this when I'm just hanging out. The web orders come in, and I'm like that morning radio host, like, West Virginia in the house, right?
And this one goes out to
Alvin in Virginia got a Wild from us, Marbella Wild.
Oh, my gosh. He's going to love it.
Yeah.
He's going to love it. Ask Don
You
from
had
the
one of
shop
those.
or myself. I had one. Yep. Those are most excellent.
Yep. Brian in Georgia got a Hey Carbon, speaking of Konas.
Oh, yeah.
And James in Colorado got a Kona unit. So thanks everyone who ordered bikes from us in the last week or so. That's not everyone. That was just some of the ones that I thought would be fun to say thank you to on the podcast.
You're going to enjoy that. Brian in Georgia, you're going to enjoy that. Hey. One of the Path riders, Chris of single speed fame, rides one of those. I think he actually converted it to single speed.
Mr. Chris Heinrich?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a professional athlete. We can say his full name.
That's true. He is of Downeyville single speed champion fame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Brian, that's going to be awesome.
The Winter Series is coming up at Fontana. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, but every year when I see that, it brings back memories of going out and racing downhill with my daughter, Paulina, when she was 12.
You know, whenever I think about the Winter Series at Fontana, I think about Jim, another Path rider. One of the first times I saw him ride was racing at Fontana, and down at the bottom right before the wall, there's this rock gap.
Yeah, you're on like a rock slab, and then you can kind of do a little roll into the left, or you can take the fast line, which is straight over the rock, but you have to jump over it.
Yep. And he jumped over it, got a little bit sideways, and his bike cartwheeled. He managed to bail and run off. I was like, that's incredible. Anyways,
Racing brings out the best in us.
that's right. Fontana Winter Series, it's a lot of fun.
Is that 3 disciplines or
Yeah. DHXC and Enduro.
nice?
February 11th and 12th, January 28th and 29th, and January 14th and 15th.
Awesome. How about Over the Hump? I know that we've been talking about that for a little bit, and I think that got postponed because of the rains.
Yep, also postponed due to the atmospheric rivers. Postponed to January 28th, February 28th, and February 25th, and the Family Day is the race on. Wait.
Yeah, Family Day is the race on January 28th.
Nice.
Yeah, so
What does Family Day mean?
I think that's when they help feature but that's interesting.
They have a kids race,
They have a kids race.
and they do fun family stuff. Bring your family. I've been to Family Day, and it's family oriented, and there's lots of kids and general family vibes, and it's definitely a good place to bring your family and introduce people to mountain biking. Maybe mountain bike, maybe introduce people to mountain bike racing who aren't super hardcore. The course is pretty chill to ride, and if you're riding it with riders around your level, then it's not too crazy. I mean, I will say, as a somewhat seasoned mountain biker, it's terrifying to ride that course with the people riding it at the speed that the fast people ride it at.
But you don't have to ride it at the speed that fast people ride
Even
it
just
at.
having them come by you at that speed.
I've had that experience.
Drafting behind them on the flat section. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and watching them pull away because I can't hold on to their tail, even drafting on them.
Yeah, that could happen. That could happen.
So
Although, they're maintaining that pace. So since I'm not maintaining that pace and I'm drafting, I could use it. And also that flat session's not very long.
right,
So,
right. But there's a bunch of different levels. So whatever your skill set, I'm sure you can find a race to kind of slot in and still enjoy yourself.
yeah. And it's one of, if you've never been to Over the Hump, I think it's unlike other races because people actually hang out and talk to each other.
Yeah.
And mingle, which is a totally different thing. I've never seen that at any of the other local races, not to that degree. At Fontana, it does happen, but it's not the same. It's not the same kind of camaraderie and socializing.
I haven't been back since I think they're staging in a different area. I have been staging in a slightly different area, but back when I had attended, kind of that whole setup of how they have the shops and the vendors kind of in one area, kind of focusing where everyone finishes the race, cools down, and then interacts with food and
Right. And it's also the starting point of the finish line.
correct. So that's I think helpful.
They've the little intangible things and the little things that get cared about a lot makes so much of a difference in the vibe and energy of an event. And that event always, I feel like, is a great example because a lot of the things they do are not really unique to them. And the course is kind of just a mountain bike. It's a cool course, but it's not a trail network that probably a lot of people would go ride for any other reason. But the way in which they engage their audience and get their audience to engage each other is pretty special, and definitely builds community and builds like good energy around the sport, which is awesome.
It's cool. I'm gonna have to do that now.
Yeah, well, and there's these people there who you see them on their bike, and if you're basing it on like Snow Summit value systems, they look like they don't know how to ride a bike, and then they're really, really fast.
I like that. Snow Summit value systems.
Yeah. So, other news, did you guys see the pink bike article that got pulled off Instagram about Roscop last night?
Yeah.
That was kind of wild.
Rob Roscop potentially gone from Santa Cruz, but we don't know.
I would say it's pretty clear that he looks like he is from that. Just from that. Did you click on the Instagram post from the pink bike link?
No, I just read the first couple of lines on the Instagram post.
Auk and I were talking last night and looking at it, and if you click on the Instagram post from the pink bike article and then look at the comments, we think we found like a comment from Rob Roscop's wife, and like it kind of looks like almost for sure maybe Rob's going to go work at Uno Bikes, which is crazy.
Yeah,
those bikes look crazy too.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yeah.
I kind of was wondering if we should pick them up before, and now I'm like really wondering if they want to sell bikes at the Path in Tustin and Trabuco Canyon.
Aren't they like the Lambos of mountain bikes?
Is that what it is? Maybe not. Then. Just kidding.
Yeah. I feel like that.
Because they're expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like just how low the top tubes are.
Yeah.
But it is a kind of an awkward look how tall that makes the seat mast in comparison.
Yeah. It's an e-bike too, right? That's the one he was on?
The one he was on is an e-bike, but they make regular bikes
Right.
and e-bikes.
They started with that like DH bike, right? That's where they started, I think.
I think you might be right. And they all kind of look like a DH bike,
Yeah.
like a crazy Euro DH bike.
And that's Uno. It's like the card game except with 2 N's.
Yep.
Yeah, and you might get autocorrected to Unmo if you try to type it.
Right.
Now I need to make a Uno skit. Draw 2.
Reverse, auto reverse, skip.
Yes. That's good.
Is that another I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know if either of you know the answer. Is that a Spanish brand?
I kind of thought it was, but I haven't
Okay,
done the dive on that. Yeah, pure speculation or like maybe vague memory association that it might be.
Right. Could be a second from that region, Spanish and a Basque company. So
Could be.
yeah.
We already dabbled too with Mondraker from Spain as well
Interesting.
back
right.
in the day, and their bikes are pretty rad too. I remember I rode that Mondraker at Oaks that day and had a good time on it.
Yeah. So Rob Roskop, he's also, man, possibly, could you imagine a Santa Cruz without Rob Roskop?
It's crazy. I mean, we had him on the podcast when he was still like firmly the person at Santa Cruz.
Yes.
I feel like there's a whole generation now of mountain bikers who like wouldn't necessarily know or have a connection to Rob Roskop.
I think that's right. But I think that the kind of curating of personality and energy and brand identity, brand integrity, or whatever the right word is, I think he was a big part of that from the beginning. I remember when he was on the podcast talking about the genesis of Santa Cruz and how they were the guys going to the Interbike trade show that weren't in suits and that rode bikes. And also, I think Rob Roskop, coming from the skate community, looked at mountain biking more how the Path looks at it, and maybe how Alan looks at it too, than anyone did. Back then when Santa Cruz bikes got started, most people who were riding bikes were either coming from BMX bikes, road bikes, or motocross. And not many this was early on before the free ride movement, when the industry realized that a lot of people enjoyed riding bikes for more of a self-expression and enjoyment, and maybe to like style it out a little bit or find an expressive line or a creative line. And I think Santa Cruz was maybe the first brand, maybe Santa Cruz and Kona, of brands that really ever emerged and made it, that really got that, I think. And I think that was Rob too.
Yeah. It seems like it's pretty normalized in the culture now, like that kind of skatey feel. Like if you look at like the 50 to 10 videos, they feel very much like skate videos. And now you see, but that's become just kind of not exactly normal, but I feel like you see a lot more of that in the mountain bike community.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's been a few different kind of crests of that, like the free ride movement in the early and mid 2000s, and then the like soul rider movement and then the kind of travel influencer movement, and then the bike park thing became really big and is I think tied into that. But there were pockets where it was always really strong, like Bellingham and Washington, where Kona and Transition are headquartered, and a lot of other brands, I think, always had a community that had that mindset. And to a degree, I think Tustin had that mindset early on, because the Path was here and we did. So, and I think there's a lot of little communities that did around different places. But the industry, I would say the industry has kind of caught on to that a little bit. But for the most part, in a lot of cases, if it's not Transition or Santa Cruz or Kona or one of the brands that was always doing it, a lot of times it's a little kind of not necessarily immersed and connected. And there's definitely exceptions. And I mean, like, I think Giant actually does a really good job of connecting on a grassroots level and understanding the different ride fantasies and all that. And I'm not just saying that because you just got a Giant, or just because we sell them. But they're a great example of a company they're a big company. They're a global company. They're not necessarily from the U.S. And it would be easy to assume that they're not gonna be connected with the mountain biking community that isn't straight competition or isn't road, or because traditionally the big three, Trek, Specialized, and Giant, often did miss the mark on that. I think they often were not. They were really good. They were really strong with, like, say, downhill race or cross country race or both. But that is competition, right? Like, that's a different mindset.
Really structured, right? There's like a format and a structure to it.
And kind of straight-laced a little bit
compared
to what I'm talking about. Not quite as gritty, not quite as, a lot of kind of factory, like the style that's common right now with mountain biking. And I've seen everyone here sometimes like this is you almost look like you're not wearing a mountain bike kit.
Right. Yeah. I'm a t-shirt guy.
Right.
People are always trying to give me jerseys, and I'm like, give me a t-shirt.
Do you like tech tees or just straight cotton?
It's like the polyester blend,
like
kind
a
of
tech-y.
Right.
Tech-ish.
But still looks and feels like a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny you say that about Giant. Like, when I started interacting with people inside Giant, I saw, like, I think for a lot of people coming to Giant from the outside, it can seem like it's just big, because it's a big brand. But interacting with the people inside, it feels like a really grassroots company still. I don't know how they do that, but it does feel like that.
I don't totally know how they do it, but I have some kind of ideas about some of the secret sauce. And I do think it's a long-standing top-down tradition of being humble and present and listening, paying attention and really caring.
That's cool.
You hear it in kind of the legends of the brand history where, there's these stories of, and this person from Giant remembered my name 20 years later, and that kind of thing. You hear that a lot. That's about cool. Giant is that you're not just a number to them. They really see a person in front of them, and it's a philosophical thing that they're serious about. Yeah. That's my impression.
That's cool.
So how did you start making connections with Giant and kind of like getting some of these insights?
Elise over there just started giving me bikes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like simplifying that, but riding bikes, and then Elise over there basically said, "Hey, do you want to try out a Trance, or do you want to try out a Giant?"
All right.
And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm a content creator, so I'm gonna."
Sure.
If you're going to offer to let me ride a bike, yeah, of course, I'm going to ride a bike. And put me on a Trance X.
Got it.
And I rode that like for a couple of weeks and was like, wow, this is a really fun bike.
Right.
And there was no obligation or anything. And then just the conversation continued. And the more I rode I was riding the Trance, and then I started riding the Rain.
Got it.
And I was like, I really like these bikes.
Yeah, that Rain is something special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm riding it up at the bike park. I'm doing all the stuff that I was doing on the Nomad, and took it to Mammoth, and was riding the gnarly stuff up there, and basically was like, I love these bikes. And we started talking about a relationship, and that's kind of how that happened, basically. And then we worked out all the details. And
is your Rain a 2022 or 2023?
2022.
Have you seen the 23? You're excited about that?
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I think we all are.
You haven't ridden that 23 yet, have you?
Not yet.
So anything jump out at you about the way the Giant's bikes rode, or each model, or?
I feel like they're more playful and poppy. Definitely the Trance.
And this is compared to, you had a Nomad?
Yeah, the Santa Cruz Nomad.
And before that you had
the Bronson.
Bronson.
Yeah. And before that, the Intense Recluse.
I
That was
remember
my
your
first full
Recluse,
suspension.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was the bike I brought here that had the busted rear triangle. Yeah. And then y'all tricked me.
Did we loan you a bike or
They
something?
started loaning me bikes, and I was like, hey, I like these other bikes. Yeah, so like the Nomad is such a solid bike. Really good in the gnar and the steep. And I didn't really realize that it was maybe kind of holding me back a little bit with like cornering and jumps. Because I think as soon as I started getting on like the Giants, they maybe just fit me a little bit better. I don't know if just the geometry of it. I feel like the Nomad's got like a really long rear end. And even when I'd see footage of myself on that bike, I always felt like in the Bronson too, I always felt like it trailed out a little bit behind me a lot. Just maybe the way I ride. So I felt like how do I explain this? It feels like when I'm turning the bike on a Giant, it's turning around the center of the bike, whereas the Santa Cruz's feels like it's turning around more the front center of the bike. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Pivoting around the bottom bracket more than around the front axle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's kind of what it feels like to me. It's kind of hard for me to really break it down because I was going from a full 27.5 to a full 29.
Nomad 5.
Yeah, the Nomad 5, just before the mixed wheel.
Not MX, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little bit, that kind of played into the dynamics.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the 22 Rain is a full 29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so is the Trans X.
Right.
But I think you can.
Not all of them.
You can. Yeah. Yeah. The Trans-X has the flip chip now, though, right?
It
Yes.
does.
So you could pretty easily set that up with the mixed wheel setup.
Yeah.
You gonna
Yeah.
try that?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Especially the E.
Oh, you're gonna try an e-bike too?
Well, I was just riding the Trans-X E,
Oh.
and that was a blast.
Are you gonna have your own e-bike
I
soon?
think so. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be not a rainy?
I'm not sure actually because the phrase that was used is an e-bike, so I don't know if it's going to be the Trans-X or the Rain. So we'll see.
Cool.
But I rode the Trans-X E, and I think because of the extra weight, it felt almost as gnarly as the Rain. You
Oh,
know?
yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah. And I could see like over forking it a little bit and putting a coil on it, and
And then you'd have a Rain E.
I think they should give you a rain. I think they should give you a rainy though.
I'd be
I
an
think you would
advocate.
represent better on that.
Mark, if you're out there.
I think it's more your style.
yeah, I could see that. We'll see though. I'm gonna.
But there's that super light new Trans E too, so that could be pretty cool if you got that. It's there's a Trans E coming that's supposed to be more like 46 pounds. It's still instead of like 50 pounds or 54, 50, instead of in the 50s, in the mid 40s,
Okay.
and still full power. So that sounds pretty fun too.
Yeah.
But the rainy, you could like really ride all the trails you ride
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be happy with either one. To tell
You're a
the
very
truth.
grateful person.
Gracious, tactful, and grateful.
Yeah. I took the Trans-X E to Greer, and like there's Rabbit Hole, and there's this whole other trail down there that I'm not going to go down because then you got to pedal out. On my e-bike, it was like we just kept going. I was like waiting to show up in San Clemente, honestly. But then like the pedal out was like nothing, so I loved that about it. So
Right.
yeah, I'd be stoked with either one.
I'm excited you're going to get an e-bike. Maybe we'll ride more.
Yeah. Actually, there's a question from my Instagram post.
Oh, yeah?
And the question was, does Tani even
Ride a push bike?
ride analog bikes anymore?
Does he even ride, bro?
Oh, man.
Wait, who was that from? I need to say who that was from. That was from J Dog Rides. Said that.
Oh, so that's my friend Jason in Jersey. Shout out Jason.
Trolling.
Shout out to Halter Cycles. Too.
Trolling.
Halter Cycles probably the best shop in all the East Coast.
I do take issue with the analog term, though. I don't like when people say analog.
I think I saw your post on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I'm a witness. He does ride push bikes.
Once in a while, I
bikes.
actually was gonna dust off a muscle bike and make sure that I still knew how to ride it for the customer appreciation day. Because I didn't want to show up on customer appreciation day and have like not my bike vibes with my bike.
Are you gonna bust out the trance?
I think so. I might have to put Cush Core in it though. Make sure I have a good like all the excuses for not being able to keep up on the climbs.
That's right.
Yeah. Why don't you put a Conti on the back?
That sounds like a good idea.
The
Maybe.
DH casing. I hear it's all the rage.
Zach probably put one on without my permission.
Oh, hey, there was one other piece of news, which is until the end of January, you can get 15% off
Yes.
on the online store if you use my code
Oh,
MTB Alan.
all right.
Thanks for remembering. I forgot about that. I forgot we did that.
Yeah,
That's
till the end of
awesome.
January.
15% off, only a couple exceptions. Like you can't get a Shuttle SL. But if
Could you
we
get a 2022 Kona?
if we don't already have it at 20%, if it's at full price, yes.
Got it.
Or if we had, I don't know, I don't want to make anyone at Kona mad, but basically that coupon code works on most full price items, including bikes. Just a couple exceptions.
Yeah, single purchase, right?
Yes. Till the end of January.
End of January.
Just for Mountain Bike Alan's followers.
yeah,
MTB Alan's followers.
that's right.
Do you have to show proof?
Thanks for doing that, Alan. Thanks for being on the show again, too.
Hey, this is my pleasure.
No, we're kind of doing the honor system on that one.
That's cool.
So, you could
I'll be your-
swear Alan off and like block him on Instagram and stuff and still do it, and then you would be
Yeah, it's fine.
not honorable.
I don't
I'll
care.
be your
That would
Huckleberry
be
Alan.
that would be dishonorable.
I just want to support the shop.
Thanks, Alan.
Same.
I don't think anyone's going to do that. That's why I'm comfortable using the honor system here.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
I'd hate to admit some of the stuff we've used the honor system on in the past.
Well, we were talking about skate culture a little bit, and Rob Roskop. I don't actually have a lot of history with that, but do either of you guys have those connections?
Oh yeah, yeah. I started skating in the '80s,
Oh wow!
like late '80s, and
So you're
just
like
fell in love with
free?
it.
I'm kidding.
yeah,
So yeah, me too. So I
started skating in the late
this is
80s,
before
early 80s, late
skateboards had
Late 80s.
tails on both ends, basically.
yeah. They just had it. There was a tail.
The nose was stubby and round.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah,
Me
you
too.
Didn't need a nose.
I used to skateboard out of my front door. My feet wouldn't hit the ground on my front porch. My skateboard would, and I would like ride off
Nice.
the one stair onto the sidewalk. And that was a Vision Gator. I had my first proper skateboard.
Vision Gator. My best friend had a Vision Gator,
Nice.
and I was on a cab,
Classic.
a Bonite, Bonite cab.
What does that mean? I don't
You
remember
remember
that
Bonite?
term.
So Pal Peralta had this thing where they were trying to make their board stronger by putting quote unquote Bonite in it,
Whoa.
which was like basically like tar paper in between the 7-plies,
Oh yeah.
which was terrible. It was a terrible idea. What was that? We were just talking about the Kona Airflex or Air something like that. Air coil.
Oh, the Magic Link
Oh, the
Yeah,
magic
Magic
on the
link,
on the last coil airs.
Yeah, it was along the lines of that.
A miss.
Yeah, it was.
I was gonna say it sounds like a bike industry miss.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. So yeah, that didn't last long, but that's what I started with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Were you into like vert, street skating, mini ramps, all of it?
So this was in the 80s in Tennessee. And so what you had to skate was kind of pebbly roads and ditches,
Oh yeah.
and then like really sketchy quarter pipes in some random person's backyard that you would jump the fence to go ride.
Yeah.
So that's what I skated back then.
Nice.
And it was like pre parks.
Right.
Back when like there was a couple of parks around and they were janky and you had to pay a bunch of money to get in. So that's how I started skating.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not that different than my skateboard history.
Yeah.
We had Upland Pipeline, which was like an hour and a half away, and I got driven there once or twice. But there was not really any park skating. And we had ditches, though, and some good ones.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, Southern California has way better ditches than Tennessee.
Have you skated any of the ditches here?
A couple, yeah. Probably not any known ones, but...
So how did you make your way from Tennessee to Southern California?
So when I was still a teenager, my parents moved out here.
Okay.
And I just moved with them.
Do you bring your skateboard?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, I carried it.
On the plane?
In the car, on the plane, or
Yeah,
whatever.
on the plane, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So then, did you continue skating when you came here?
Yeah, and this was like 1990.
Okay.
So that's when skating like had its second death, I guess. You know, like nobody skated and everybody that skated had like bushing covers instead of wheels and just kind of like did like really slow tech tricks.
Right,
And I was super still into like 80s like slashy carvy stuff.
Right.
And so I skated by myself a lot in the early 90s but then just never stopped. I was a soul skater.
Nice. You still skate sometimes?
It's been a little while. The last time
I've heard
the last time I pulled a hammy. Last time I was skating a pool and like lost it on a front side and pulled a hammy. So
I heard Tani tried skating at
My 46th birthday, I ate it at the San Clemente skate park.
yeah.
Thanks, Auk, for bringing that
I
up.
was like, and I skate like once a year now, so I'm every year it's hard for me to keep up mentally with how fast my skills continue to deteriorate.
I had a hard time just keeping up skating when I was skating like once a day or once a week.
Yeah.
It was like just enough to maintain.
It took me from my 46th birthday to my 47th birthday for my shoulder to heal.
Let alone his ego.
Like
From
the-
wait,
yeah.
did the kid come up? Did the kid come up to you?
Yeah, so I slam on the deck, not in the pool. Like I'm trying to do this little air out of the pool onto the deck, just like to get out of the pool. And I think it's going to be like this high, and somehow I ended up like this high, and I freak panic and slam myself. And this probably 6-year-old kid comes up to me, and like I really appreciate that he didn't call me sir. He's like, "Hey man, you okay?" Like, I was like, "Yeah, man, thanks for checking." Like, at least I'm in the system.
That's pretty analogous to my hamstring pulling, where I was like ripping around in this bowl, feeling really good. And this girl, she could have been like, I don't know, 10 or something. She's like, "How old are you, man?" And I was like, "I'm old enough." And then that's in my head. And like, this is like me about to drop in and then hammy.
Oh my gosh.
Oof.
Trying to pull yourself out of a pool
Jinxed
With
you.
the
with a pull
tweet
hammy.
hammy.
Yeah, it was good.
Was it a big, steep pool?
Yeah.
Gnarly.
It was huge.
It was
gigantic.
it was so big. It was a proper pool though with vert and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a nice vert drop in. It was pretty good.
I wouldn't do that right now. That's for sure.
We should do a skate and skirt.
Have you seen the skate park by San Clemente?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I usually bring my skateboard, and the last time I went there, I just went and there's kind of just a little mini ramp section of it, and I just did some fakies for a while.
Yeah.
That felt good. I didn't crash.
Yeah. Kick turns.
I started at the bottom at the first place, just pumped up for a while, and then dropped
okay.
in.
Right.
Like,
That's cool.
With visions of a 6-year-old running up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you riding? What board?
oh man, I'm so out of the loop that I barely even know what I have. I think it's called something Pistol or something. Oh, gosh. The kid at the skate park said old guys like it, and then it's, or at the skate store said guys my age like it, and then it's still pretty cool.
And it's still pretty cool.
That's when you know. Actually, I'm going to segue right into a question that somebody sent us, which is being, and this is back to mountain biking, but being 40 plus. This is from Jotoha. MTB. Being 40 plus, what gear and riding tips do you have for middle-aged riders wanting to progress? Gear and riding tips.
40 plus. So the big thing that happened to me when I turned 40 is I started having a lot more trouble managing my blood sugar, and it really affected my energy and my riding a lot. And I got to the point where I would bring the energy gels and the bars and stuff on the rides, and I would have these energy shortages. I'd feel really low energy, and I would take one, and it would really kind of end up with a little spike in energy and then low again. And so for me, the biggest thing for me in my riding post 40 was just getting a handle on my blood sugar, because it stopped being that. Before 40, it just seemed like I didn't have to do anything to have a handle on my blood sugar. I guess I was lucky. And so I went to the doctor a couple times, and a couple of years in a row at my annual physical, my blood work came back with elevated blood sugar, in the pre-diabetic levels. And I kind of put two and two together and realized that was connected to my energy issues, and I was having some heat regulation issues too. Where I always felt like I was pretty comfortable in hot or cold environments, and all of a sudden I could easily cold, easily hot. And I think getting that's obviously pretty specific to me, but I think a lot of people, as you get older, that's a thing. And I think for everyone it's different how you get a handle on that too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, 40. That seems like a really long time ago. That is a really long. So,
I know when people are like, "Oh, I'm 40 plus.
I
I'm so
know.
old." I'm like, "No."
I'm 50 plus now. So, but long time ago, actually when I was turning 30, my doctor had told me it comes in decades, Eric. And so wherever you're at, like Tani was talking about, establish these good habits about controlling whatever it might be.
Right.
Your blood sugar, get into the good habits, and because for whatever reason at these decades, it gets exponentially harder, it feels like. So for me, where it's been is recovery. So recovery and the in-between. So it's the stretching, have a regular stretching routine. Like Tani was before, he never really thought about blood sugar. I never thought about stretching or recovery. And now I feel like, man, it really is an important part of being able to go out and ride, to meet your own ride fantasy. Is that what you do in between? And so it's so hard because it's a chronic thing, right? You don't see the immediate effect of it. So that stretching, the trying to eat a little bit better, get good sleep, and so that's to me is a. But I would say this, that I have friends who are, say, 5 or 6 years older than me, and from the time we're in our late 20s, they would always tell me, "Auk, don't turn 30. Auk, don't turn 35. Don't turn 40." And now, and I look back and I'm like, I don't think there's any reason that we can't be strong or getting stronger or building skills, getting better at the things that we love to do, mountain biking, even past 50. I mean, one of our friends, I was just talking to Val about Garrett, local legend. I think last year he hit a million feet of vert again.
What?
And he's retired. His retirement age, I know that.
Yeah, he's probably more than a decade older than I am. And he's been several years ago, I was asking, I had heard that I read a story about somebody who hit 1 million feet of vert. There's a whole write-up about, this person mountain biker did 1 million feet of vert. And I was talking to Randon Garrett in the trail. I'm like, how much do you ride? He's like, I think this is the third year I've done it in the past 4. I was like, are you kidding? And that was several years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so there's, look at people like that, and
Yeah.
there's no reason that we can't continue to get stronger.
Yeah. I would totally agree with both of these things, the nutrition and the mobility. And I say build muscle. Muscle is your physical savings account. Like, it's going to make you stronger on everything, holding your body up, but like keeping your core strength for dealing with crashes.
Right.
It's like built-in padding. And then when you do get injured, that's where your body pulls from
It's to
recovery.
Right.
Yeah, build your stuff back. Still build your stuff back.
So I think I've seen some of your posts on, strength training, what have you. How did that evolve, and how long has that really been a focus?
I was a serious CrossFitter for a while.
Oh.
Like, I used to be a CrossFit coach,
Oh, nice.
trainer, I guess technically trainer. So got into basically functional movement training.
Do you still do that?
I still do. Technically, it's CrossFit, but I don't go to like a CrossFit gym or anything. I just like train in the backyard. A lot of that's just convenience.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's CrossFit style training.
High intensity, different muscle groups. And
Yeah, just like mixed, like you constantly vary functional movements with like, just constantly varied functional movements.
So
at
have
high
you been
intensity.
doing this? Did you start doing this after you started riding, or have you been
Before.
Did you do before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was a CrossFitter.
you identified as a CrossFitter.
I
You
identify,
as
like,
a
yeah.
CrossFitter.
I mean, I was a coach, so like,
So do we get to keep you for a while as a mountain biker?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's not going to be. I used to identify as a mountain biker.
Yeah, no.
There's like some. Was there crossover
I'm a
between?
CrossFitter that presents as a mountain biker. No, I definitely in CrossFit was like kind of took the place of skateboarding to a degree because it had this like physical aspect, a community aspect, and a skill aspect.
Right.
And it even had like a play aspect, kind of just the gym that I was at.
And the competitions, right? Aren't there CrossFit competitions?
Yeah, you can get into that side of it if you want. And it's always a little bit competitive in the gym.
Sure.
But the gym that I went to was like, interestingly, the guy who started it came out of the skate industry. And so it had the kind of skatey
Oh,
energy, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
It was still kind
A
of
little
playful.
bit anti-authoritarian and
Yeah, still kind of fun and like that punk
Right.
rock kind of. But then that was my activity. But once I found mountain biking, it was like CrossFit became the supporting activity.
right.
It was the way to like make me better at mountain biking,
Right.
which I think is really the kind of the way anybody should do CrossFit or any kind of fitness training. So yeah.
So, how did you make your way into mountain biking?
A former pathlete, Matt Palmer.
Oh, Matty,
Yeah.
Matty Palmer. Oh my
He
gosh.
he started working at the company that I currently work at,
Okay.
and Matt. If you know Matt Palmer, he's just a really great guy, good heart, and
A phenomenal rider.
yeah. But I didn't know anything about mountain biking, and Matt and I just started hanging out. And I was saying, like, I used to go hiking and get outdoors, but I just haven't really done that. And he's like, there's this thing where it's like hiking, but you go way faster and you can go way further. It's called mountain biking. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good. And he got me into it.
Oh my gosh.
And I got to tell you, this is the kindest guy because the first mountain bike ride I went on was basically what would be considered a gravel ride now.
Okay.
And I was like, Matt, let me show you my mountain biking route. And he was like super kind the whole time. He was like, oh, yeah, cool. And then after we got done, he was like, let me take you on another
Mountain
bike ride. And then he took me on some single track. And then it was
Where'd
like
you go?
Post Office Loop, Angeles Oaks.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If
yeah,
you've done SART, like it's kind of up in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. This is mountain biking.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I got into it.
That's a great way to get into it. Great person to get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's also, of course, how I found the path. So I was looking for somewhere that focused on mountain bikes. And he was like, hey, go to the path.
How long were you riding before you started your YouTube channel?
About 5 minutes. No, I'm just. I was not that long, maybe a year.
So your audience has really like traveled with you through your
Yeah.
progression.
Yeah, totally. From like, I don't think it didn't really start until do you remember when Sky Park opened?
Yeah.
It was right around then.
Hmm.
That's really kind of when the channel really kind of started. Because before that, it was like a lot of people, you get a GoPro, you attach it to yourself, and you post your videos
right.
on YouTube and get like 5 views, which is like you and your buddies.
Right.
But then Sky Park, I think I did like a tour guide of Sky Park, and I think that was one of the first videos that like started to take off.
Was that a planned thing that it would start to take off, or did it happen and then you kind of realized, oh, I'm doing something?
The latter. That's just kind of how I operate in general. Like I just do stuff.
Seemed interesting to you, and you produced a quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like I tend to identify gaps. Like one of the videos that I did early on was how to get your girlfriend or your partner into mountain biking.
Right, sure.
You know, because I'd go to Snow Summit and I'd see bro with his girlfriend, and she's like pedals at like 12 and 6 o'clock, and he's just like pushing her down the hill, and I'm like, that's not
Right.
unless you don't want your partner to get into mountain biking. That's the one way to do it. But,
Right.
So I saw that gap, and I thought, okay, I got Kelly into mountain biking, so I want to convey, and that worked out really well. So I want to convey that to other people.
You're definitely in the minority that worked out really well. That is one of the more difficult maneuvers, I believe, is for someone to get someone that they're romantically involved with into mountain biking.
See, but they haven't watched my video.
That's probably right. That's probably right.
Yeah.
How about some spoiler alerts for that video?
Well, step number 1 is get somebody else to coach her,
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's a great one.
or him, or your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did
That's a
you
good one.
introduce her to Matt Palmer?
No. Although I took her on Post Office Loop a little too early,
Yeah.
and there were some tears and blood. But to her credit, which made me realize like she was into it, she was like, "Let's do it again."
Oh wow.
Yeah. So she was stoked on that. Yeah, but yeah.
You guys are a special match.
Yeah, we are. We are. You're like,
There's a
you're like,
lot.
it's like-
There's a lot of stereotypes about this for good reason.
yeah.
And you can, if there's a lot of opportunities to witness them in action out on the trail, as you
Yeah.
pointed out. Like,
Yeah. Well, step 1 is pick the right partner.
yeah,
That's right. Have a healthy foundation.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
you gotta start there. So you gotta. It starts with about 7 years of relationship building, and then
that sounds
and then,
about right.
And then call REI and do the intro to mountain biking.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Congrats
some
on
of the
that.
other suggestions?
One which I think is just generally true with any newer rider is coach off trail. Do all your coaching and like like things like level pedals or even hands and feet, those kind of things. Do that before you get on the trail, and then give them single word cues to remind them. So you're not trying to explain on the trail. So once you're on the trail, you can be behind them or whatever, and you can just be like,
Right.
you can just give them that cue. They know what to do.
Feet, hands, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever
Safe
it
words.
is. Head,
Count.
head up or whatever.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
That's good.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
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 Session is another one.
So like do sections over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. Find a section of trail and just like ride it over and over.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't remember the rest. I'd have to go watch.
How
the
did you find that niche? Was that, it's interesting. Like we recently hired a consultant or a marketing firm to help us kind of think about a lot of things with our content and our even like our Google AdWords and stuff. But one of the things that the main consultant says to me a lot is that he talks about this balance between like listening to the algorithms versus having our own voice. He's like, well, the second part's no problem, but like, are you going to listen to the algorithms at all?
To me, the algorithm is you listen to the algorithm to know how to package things. right? The most valuable content you have is your own experience, right? The most valuable thing you have is you, your face, your voice, who you are, because nobody else has that.
Right.
And then, like anything, you have to make it work in the environment. You have to set it up to succeed in the environment that it's going to live in. And for YouTube or social media or whatever, those are the algorithms, So that's kind of how I look at it. And I say that, but that involves a lot.
Do you do you analyze like what's trending and stuff like that? You don't have to answer if it's too much behind the curtain.
It depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about like our long form episodes, I look at the performance of my own videos because I can see retention, like when are people dropping off, and like trying to learn from that. Because I just posted a San Juan video, and the video is under 8 minutes long, and you know how long that trail is. Right. So it's like, to me, I had to cut a bunch of stuff because there's a bunch of parts of that trail that they look exactly the same.
Yeah.
So like, do I want to show 3 clips of sandy turn?
Right.
No, we need one of those. So things like that to keep interest. When it comes to the skits, there I do a lot of like looking at other people's stuff and getting inspiration, and then stuff that makes me laugh or makes me smile or think, then I like go, okay, how can I emulate that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, slightly different angle on this. To me, when I kind of see or hear some of the things you're doing, it's clear that there's a passion not just about mountain biking, but about the community that you exist in. And at what point what brought you to that community? At what point do you start transitioning from your own content creator to actually leveraging that into the larger?
I think some of it was connecting here, because I think like connecting here connected me to a larger community.
Right.
Also, going to like Sky Park and Snow Summit, the bike parks. So then I started kind of seeing more of the community. But I think the thing that drove me was seeing the gap in the content creators, the mountain bike content creators. Like I wasn't seeing people of color. I wasn't seeing, I was seeing a lot of like, send it,
Right.
And that's awesome, but I'm not that. I'm a little bit more nuanced. I'm a little bit more philosophical.
Sure.
I tend to be a little bit more cautious as I'm writing, and like to me, it's like I would like to present that.
And that starts attracting a community around you.
Yeah. I think one of the most emotional moments for me was I did a group ride recently to celebrate like a subscriber milestone.
Right.
And when I looked so I'd been on other group rides, and it can be kind of monochromatic.
Sure.
And when the people showed up to my group ride, I was so stoked with the range of people.
Sure.
Different genders, ethnicities, ages, like little kids on up to old folks, men, women, all different skin colors.
Sure.
And it was just like, that made me really happy. So like, that's one of the things that's like really important to me, is to have that representation.
Industry's lucky to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, we need that, because we can be pretty one-dimensional in terms of who we are. We can be a lot of white guys, and kind of a lot of young white guys sometimes even.
Yeah.
And it's just more fun with more people, I feel like.
Yeah.
Not to mention it's good for business.
Yeah. Nurses got money.
The Army.
What's that?
The Army.
That's right.
A lot of nurses do shop here, and a lot of them refer to themselves to me as the Filipino Army.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And the Bangladeshis too.
Yeah.
I got a lot of Filipino aunts.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, just like to me, it's like, so there's a, Grow Cycling Foundation.
Yeah.
Right. Elliot Jackson said there's a lot of organizations that try to bring cycling culture to other communities. And what he wants to do is bring other communities into cycling.
Right.
And I feel like, and I experienced this kind of coming into mountain biking where initially, like, I felt like I had to leave a lot of myself at the door to enter the house of mountain biking.
Oh.
And very quickly I realized, like, I always do that. Like, I always feel like, and then eventually, like, I just get mad and be like, no, I'm just going to be me. And so I want to, like, make it clear that, like, you can bring whoever you are with whatever you have,
right.
To mountain biking. Here's one example that people really hate is speakers on the trail, music on the trail. Personally, I don't love it, but for some people, that's part of the culture, is to bring that with you. And so I try not to frown on it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I never try to, like, talk crap on it or whatever, because that might just be part of what they're doing. Like, I remember I was, like, out on some back single track trail, and there was just a crew coming through and just Tejano music just blasting out of a Bluetooth speaker. And at first I was like, but then I was like, they're having fun.
Yeah.
They're cracking up.
Right.
They're, like, just shouting at each other and having a good time. And I was like, you know what? Like, let people bring who they are to the trail.
Right. I think mountain biking's funny this way because coming from surf and skate, mountain biking feels very kind of soft and warm and friendly compared to surf and skate to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also in some other ways, that part that you said where you're like, screw this, I'm going to stop conforming, I'm going to be myself, that part, I feel like skate in particular, they're more ready for that, that phase.
Yeah.
As on the whole, and have been for a while.
Yeah. I felt like when I got into skating, it was like that from the get-go. Like, you were appreciated for, like,
being an individual.
Yeah.
But the gatekeeping can be pretty harsh. And at least in my neck of the neighborhood, a lot of the skaters are pretty chauvinist.
Yeah.
Like,
it might have been because that might have been a regional thing. Because I think when I was in Tennessee, like when I first moved to California, I thought everybody was a skater because everybody wore Vans.
skate style, yeah.
And like in Tennessee, like you didn't, if you were a skater, you were a skater. You didn't wear skate stuff. Like
There were no posers.
there were no posers, exactly. And so like if you saw somebody else who was wearing Vans, you immediately were friends, regardless of their skill level, their ethnicity, anything. Like, and so I just remember, like, I weirdly with skating, I suck at ollies, but I could boneless like crazy, and like people would appreciate that. Like, oh, you have this particular skill, and they'd be like, oh, Alan, there's Alan, the boneless guy, But like it was cool, and so like I kind of like that about the skate community. But I feel like with the mountain biking community, it's a lot of just kind of who you surround yourself with.
It's maybe providential that you hooked up with Matt Palmer, who was connected to the Path and the Path itself too. Like, one of the things I say to people is, from the moment I walked into the shop, I like realized, oh, there's this like Tani used the word gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't feel like there's a gatekeeper, and there's this acceptance of like, okay, here's this nerdy Asian guy clearly isn't part of the community, and so never, appreciated the fact that you didn't have to feel like you had to leave part of yourself somewhere.
Yeah, I felt that when I walked into the shop. That's why I kept coming back.
What's funny too is that even how deeply ingrained that reaction is in people, that sometimes it takes people a few visits to realize it's okay.
Yeah.
Or some people never quite learn to trust us, and they never feel like they can just be themselves here. And that's unfortunate. We try really hard to be warm and welcoming and and meet people where they're at. And some people just kind of come in not ready to trust,
Yeah.
which is understandable, right? Like I think anyone who is ready to trust is really brave.
Well, I mean, I don't want to gush too much about the shop because we're probably preaching to the choir a lot. People are listening to this podcast, but for me, it really meant something that there's a work stand right at the front door.
Right.
Like, that's one of the first people you interact with is a tech. The techs aren't hidden back in the back, being all cool and grumpy. Like, you walk in and you can immediately talk to somebody who knows, like, you get that right away. And I thought, like, that to me was like a really good sign when I walked in.
Okay, I have to ask a question then, because we're working on the layout for the new space, and I have to I'm going to describe to you what I'm picturing and tell me if you think it's going to be close enough to this to have the impact. So, if you walked in and instead of the very first thing that you saw was the work stand, you were standing across from what would be our cash register over here, and to your right was a bench like the one we're sitting at, and they're kind of equidistant from you.
Mm.
And so you can go talk to different people. It's just like here, except that instead of the first thing you run into is the workbench, it's you get to pick which one you walk towards first.
And this would be like the tech bar.
Yes. It would still be a white glove service riding and quick repair station. It'd be a little bit more. It would actually be a small workshop though, instead of just a little area. So
Yeah.
it would be, and we would still have our main workshop in the back where the heavy lifting happens, and anyone who's grumpy that day doesn't have to talk to any customers.
They could be grumpy cool in the back.
Yeah. It'd be cool in the back.
They have to still be not so grumpy that the grumpiness bleeds over into the staff who has to talk to them.
That's right.
I like equidistance. That makes sense to me.
It's like choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Because sometimes you want to come in and pick up your bike.
Well, one of the things we want to get away from is kind of clogging the door with people who are waiting for the service people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
But there will still be a service rider right there ready to assess your bike and do quick repairs, and probably two of them sometimes. And there's going to be, I think we're going to also in that room be doing our suspension service, because it's going to be clean, less dust and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
With, in the main workshop, we're cutting metal, cutting carbon. You don't want that kind of dust around your suspensions. You want your suspension services removed from that environment as it can be.
I never thought about that.
So,
That's cool.
and what I think it'll be fun to kind of showcase the suspension services a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Even, I still get excited when I see a rear shock apart, and I kind of look at all the parts on the counter. And so,
I've seen that a couple times here.
yeah,
It's cool.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the new shop.
yeah, I think it's going to be a better place to hang out for the riders and for the staff and everything, and a better place. You'll be able to see more bikes and better lighting and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So things are changing here because we got a new shop going to be opening up hopefully before October, so we don't have 3 shops celebrating anniversaries in October. And we talked a little bit about how, your maybe perspective or, has changed in the mountain bike community, starting with leave a little bit of yourself at the door.
Yeah.
As you've grown in the content creation space, whether it be YouTube or Instagram, like how has your perspective changed, whether it be in that space or in mountain biking itself, the community?
I think there's a lot of room for promoting slow progression.
I like that a lot.
Weirdly, this year or 2022 I was the most cautious rider I've ever been, and I progressed the most. That message I think can get out there. I think people want it. I think people want to hear it's okay to I'm not going to hit that today. I've hit something like that in the past, but for whatever reason, maybe I'm just didn't sleep well, or I just not in the mood.
Just not feeling it,
Just not
even.
feeling
And
it,
I so think to be able to do that is so good, so smart. And it's taken me a while, really, to be all the way. I mean, you kind of give and take with that attitude a little bit sometimes, I think, and depending on where you're at with hunger for progression. But right now, I'm certainly at a phase where I'll pass up on any section without hesitation. And like, I love that. I think it's such a great place to be when you're riding, and you really can progress a lot from that space. And it reminds me of something that I think a lot about in business, which is the pace that is responsible and effective and maintainable, and that you can continue to maintain that pace of say progression. Mm-hmm. It's like the hour hand on the clock. You almost can't see it at any given time, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think that, to me, for that to be a theme for you with riding, it's like right in line with a lot of my thinking about just business and life, and I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, of course, the pandemic had a lot of effect on a lot of us. And during this whole time, I had time to reflect on things. And then that kind of stretched out time made me okay with making those 0.5% improvements per day.
Right.
Percent improvements per day, But if you do the math, if you make a 1% improvement a day in a year, you've made at least a 300% improvement.
Right.
And so I think there's that.
That, and as the progression happens, the increments become harder to attain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and to take it to its extreme, when you're an elite rider, it's hard to gain a quarter second, a half second,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that you're trying to gain. The tiniest of increments become huge projects at the highest levels. So,
yeah. Another way, though, that my perspective has changed is, I think, because I've gotten a little bit more insight into like the industry of mountain biking, cycling in general, but mountain biking in particular.
Right.
And like, I didn't realize how small it is.
everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
A lot of people who try to get into this industry don't realize that, and they burn themselves.
Yeah. Don't burn anybody. It's really small, which, pros and cons, but yeah.
And there's a familiarity in the industry too, to where like the shops, a lot of the shops talk to each other, and the brands, a lot of them talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to, the CEOs, the credit departments, the sales departments, they know each other.
Yeah.
And then the riders on the trail and the people in the shops and everyone, it's a small world.
Yeah. And this isn't a recent thing, but it probably happened in the maybe second year of mountain biking, is like, you never know who you're on the trail with. Like,
yeah, well, it's true.
Like, the person that you see that you're like, if you're at that, I think we all kind of get to a stage where we get a little bit of skill and we start to get a little judgy, and you see somebody and you're like, who's this person?
Right.
And they end up being like some old pro that like just looks like a kook, and then they just like destroy. Like, just, I think it's the same lessons we all learn, in terms of like just treating everybody as a fellow human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Waiting to find out who they are.
Yeah. Be curious.
Be curious.
Be curious.
It's a good one.
Is there a sense of responsibility? Would you consider yourself how many subscribers do you have, say, on whether it be YouTube or Instagram? Maybe that's a taboo question to ask. Is that?
I think it's 25,000 plus, 26,000 on YouTube.
Yeah, it's like 28 now.
28.
All
No,
right.
I must have checked a while ago.
28,737.
No, I don't check every day or anything
Okay.
like that.
Exactly.
Reload the numbers. So you're asking about like sense of responsibility.
Yeah, a sense of responsibility. Like, I was going to use the word influencer, and maybe that's a follow-up question, but, a sense of responsibility as those numbers have grown.
Yeah. I learned really early on I have to be a better human. Like that number to me now, the higher that number goes, what that is like a thermometer on how much, or it's some sort of meter
Right.
on how conscious I need to be
Mm.
about things,
Right.
and, which to me, I can't fake that, right? I'm terrible at faking stuff, so it just means I have to constantly work at being a generally better human being. Just a little anecdote. Years ago, like I had I don't remember, certain number of subscribers, small number, but in my head it was like I was just another clown on the trail, right?
Right.
And I made a comment about somebody's writing, and they took a really strong offense to it. And I think if I'd have just been, you know, if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I don't think it really would have mattered that much.
Right.
Or they wouldn't have a channel to come at me,
Right.
you know,
Right.
because now it's like I'm visible. And you know, in that moment, I didn't really think it meant anything because it was just I'm just Alan, just
Right.
meh.
Right.
So then I realized like, oh, it actually means something for this MTB Alan person to be saying something about somebody, even if it's not publicly, even if it was just like mentioned to somebody off the side. And at first, of course, I was defensive, but eventually I realized like I can't do that. Like it's not cool. For lack of a better term, it's like punching down, basically. And I'm not trying to like build myself up,
Right.
but depending on your perspective, it can feel like that. And so I had to really go like, okay, I can't be that guy.
Because it feels like you're turning your whole audience on them to them, maybe.
Yeah. And you know, and this was a thing where it's like it wasn't even public. It was just like a comment, you know. But so I had to like go, okay, well, we need to learn to be more mindful.
Right.
You know, so that's kind of how I took that on. And of course, I'm still like, I'm still a dumbass a lot of the times and do a lot of stupid stuff. But like, yeah.
But I think like the fact that you recognize that and are willing to own that, I mean, it speaks volumes. You know, I mean, everyone has those moments and what have you, and to own up to it and, you know, make amends, so, you know, speaks volumes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's really different having kind of an audience. It changes the dynamic a lot, and it changes the power dynamic, kind of as you were saying.
Yeah. And I'm not accustomed to that at all. I always feel like the underdog. I always feel like just like I said, just like another clown on the bus. But I have to like recognize that there is a power dynamic there. And as much as uncomfortable as that is to me and as unnatural as that feels to me, I still have to kind of recognize it.
But it's also seems to be right in line with kind of your natural approach anyway, is to operate on a level where you would be attending to those issues.
Yeah.
I mean, you could still be the clown on the bus.
Yeah.
I'm definitely still a freaking clown on the bus.
Don't leave that at the door.
Yeah.
You can be present and mindful and juvenile.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And kind.
Yeah. Speaking
Tough,
of which,
tough act, but you can do it.
Speaking of juvenile, I have a question, you guys, from my buddy Steve, who asks, boxers or briefs?
Oh my gosh! And either way, do you wash them? Unlike Auk,
Only if they're not Patagonia.
I think this might a little bit go back to the question about as you get older too.
Oh man! Oh gosh!
But I will say, for many years I was mostly a boxers person, except when on the bike.
Yeah.
And then in the last 10, 15 years, I've become pure briefs all the time.
Really?
But like boxer briefs.
Boxer briefs.
Like down the,
yeah,
like,
not tidy whities.
yeah.
Wow.
And I will say,
I didn't know that.
when I was a kid, I had this
Maybe it's a
little
good
toy lawnmower, and you would push it, and it had a plastic dome, and the balls would
Yeah.
kind of bounce.
As soon as you say plastic, I saw that. That's
So
an
one
image.
time
Oh,
early in my mountain bike career, I forgot to switch underwear, and I went mountain biking in my loose boxers. And the whole way down, I was picturing that toy.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my God.
Oh man!
Yep. Yeah.
Which reminds me too of the first question. as you get older, you're riding, get a seat that fits and make sure your bike fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those two things get more and more important as you get older.
Yeah. Once I switched to boxers, once I switched to loose, and I was in my teens, and I've never looked back. Yeah.
Remember Tidy Whities?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That was a thing.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Not good.
yeah, I've tried to even with the Patagucci, tried to go back to the boxer briefs, and I can't.
I went straight from commando to boxer briefs.
I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah. I was commando for a long time.
Similar experience, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was the 90s,
That's impressive.
I was like a minimalist. And like 2 sets of clothes and
It reminds me of that one song, like free. Now I'm free.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep.
I don't think that's what
Tom Petty, right?
Yeah, Tom
That
Petty,
is,
yeah.
that is.
Yep. Yep. That song.
I actually thought that's what he was saying.
It really does change the meaning of that song.
It does, I mean.
I have to rewatch the video now.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever switch. Yeah.
Y'all want another question?
Yeah,
Sure. Let's keep it going.
I think I have one.
While you're queuing that up, I noticed you're like, are you putting? It seems like most of your focus was on YouTube, but maybe a little more energy is going into Instagram now. Is that true?
Yeah. It's more going into the short form.
Like Reels type stuff?
Yeah, like 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Some of that is like I've always had that kind of goofy skit kind of writing humor
Right.
thing, like my heroes were like Eddie Murphy and Bill Murray when I was like a kid. So like I always kind of had that energy, and it's I don't really have a way to work that into a full length episode.
Right.
So like the quick skits, it's really fun to do that. Plus it's like pretty easy to do. Some of them I literally do at like lunch. I'll have like an hour of lunch.
And those go to Reels and
YouTube Shorts.
YouTube Shorts. Do you do TikTok?
I did TikTok for a while, but I just don't get a lot of payoff on TikTok. Like I might get a lot of views, but I don't feel like I have the same kind of interaction and engagement with the audience on TikTok. I know you can like really blow up on TikTok, but there's also, I don't want to get too much into the technical stuff, but YouTube is now going to allow you to do ad revenue sharing with shorts.
Okay.
Which can bring in some like good revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Could this ever blow up to the point where it could be your main job for you?
It could.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I think I'd have to change my outgoing funds. I'd have to reduce those some in order to make it work.
Or just blow up bigger.
Yeah, or
Right.
or both,
Yeah.
some combo. But yeah, just keep blowing up. It could. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't want to shut that down, but
Yeah.
there's some realities there I'd have to face.
But if it's something you enjoy, I mean, that's kind of probably what got you to do this, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it because I've never been like if I look at the money in and the money out,
Right.
like I'm always in the red when it comes to the channel.
And it's
Basically.
got to be a ton of work. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even. So, how many hours a week do you think you put into it?
I don't know, but I say if you want to be a content creator, just quit watching TV or playing video games
Okay.
because
It's got to be your video game. Right.
That's literally how I think of it.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in the editing suite, it feels very much like I'm playing a really complex Tetris.
Auk was our podcast editor for like
Few shows.
episodes, and that was his comment. He's like, it just feels like a video game after a while.
Yeah, it becomes your video game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's a rabbit hole that you can just keep going down.
Yeah.
Right, and refining and refining and refining.
Yeah.
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 Did you find that question?
One of them was about mullets, and I think I'm going to leave it to y'all. Mullet on climbs, terrible or the same as an enduro? And
So-
this is from local MTBer.
My feeling on this is that a bike with 29 inch front wheel, 27 and a half rear wheel, climbs like a 27.5 with a little bit heavier front tire. Most of the climbing has to do with the traction and approach angle of the rear wheel and the overall lightness of the bike. The bigger front wheel, if the bike's properly executed, doesn't really change your position on the bike or any of the other parts of the layout. And then what you have is a little extra weight possibly from a bigger diameter front tire. Although sometimes on my 29-inch wheels, I run not quite as wide of a tire than I would on a 27.5. So you might get some of that rubber weight savings back.
To me, the key phrase there is properly executed. Because I think if you took a mountain bike from 2002 and mulleted it.
Well, or if you just took a bike that started out dual 29 and just put a smaller rear wheel on it, what's going to happen is your bottom bracket's going to get pretty low, your seat angle's going to get pretty slack, and you might have that kind of behind the bottom bracket feel that makes it harder to generate great power.
Right.
And you might have more pedal strikes and all that. So I think that's the kind of the worst case scenario where you didn't do anything, where it's a 29er that now has a smaller rear wheel and it threw off the geometry.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. Gosh. So I guess if you're pedaling a mixed wheel bike, I'm not quite sure that you're setting up that bike in the same way for climbing efficiency that you might have on like a 29 that you're going for climbing efficiency. So, like,
but let's say apples to apples. So it is.
Yeah, I would agree with kind of what you're saying, Tani. I'm you lose some of the benefit of the rear wheel
of a 29 rear wheel. The better traction and the better rollover.
Right.
I do feel like it spins up easier. Like like you're maybe not going as fast, but it doesn't actually feel as hard.
So a lot of the 29er naysayers brought this up a lot in the old days, and I think it's definitely true. It takes a little bit more power force to initiate momentum on a 29er.
Reaccelerating.
Accelerating and then reaccelerating. So yeah, to your point, certain types of technical climbing where there's a lot of start-stop and getting going can be easier on the 27.5-inch rear wheel, and you're totally right about that. And to that point, we did sort of see that some riders who maybe are on the kind of lighter, less physically powerful side might have trouble really even getting a 26-inch wheeled bike rolling if it's got heavy tires and stuff. And so I do remember some riders like struggling to get 29ers rolling, and if you can't get it rolling, it's not an efficient climber.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the answer is, it depends.
It depends, but I think overall, for most people in most normal mountain biking environments, 29ers climb better because of the better rear wheel traction.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's no other give or take if everything else remains the same, though. I don't think the bigger front wheel really hurts or helps you on the climb, other than that it might be a little heavier.
And I have a feeling like maybe there's other factors that influence this so much more, like the group you're riding with.
Mm-hmm.
So like, again, if you're riding with the group where you're going to be, having your legs ripped off and drooling on yourself, just trying to keep up from getting dropped, then you're probably thinking the dual 29 front and rear.
Yeah.
But if it's a little bit more relaxed pace where you want to maybe enjoy the playfulness of the downhills and what have you, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. Like, that's going to influence the experience more.
Yeah. I think, to me, it's like you don't mullet a bike to make it climb better.
Right.
And so if local MTB is asking, how much is it going to impact my climbing? Broadly speaking, it's going to negatively impact climbing.
Overall, on average, maybe a little.
Yeah,
right?
A little bit, but exactly to a small degree, assuming that we're dealing with a relatively modern mountain bike.
And I think like fire road climbs, it's going to hurt more than, say, climbing in Laguna. Like climbing up something steep and punchy, I think the smaller rear wheel's not too bad. long fire road climbs, I think you really the little losses of traction really add up.
But if your ride experience with your group is like a little more relaxed pace, you're kind of a mid packer or even lower 20, bottom 25th quartile, 25th percentile, whatever that is.
75th percentile?
That's right, I guess. Then I don't know. Maybe the mixed wheel makes a lot of sense because that type of group ride, you even if you're the last one up the hill, to the top of the climb, you're gonna maybe the enjoyment you gain out of the descents on a mixed wheel is going to be well worth that little bit of extra struggle.
Yep.
And probably none of these wheel configuration changes on their own are going to change your spot in that group ride much.
That is true. I would say maybe not change at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a big enough difference to change your spot in the group ride. Probably.
You need to start identifying as a CrossFitter. That'll change your position in the group ride.
That will.
Both up and down.
A note on that. Pedaling fitness is its own fitness. I mean, having general fitness coming in helps.
Right.
But I thought I was going to be all that. And I started pedaling and I was like, I was dying. I got up to speed faster than I think I would have if I hadn't been training. But yeah, it's its own thing.
Yeah. And road pedaling fitness is different than mountain pedaling fitness.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly right. I have something that
you're talking about like when you're riding the luge when you go up?
That's right. That's right. I have something that might be trending. Two points don't make a trend, I think. But I've been on my road bike twice for legit road rides. Maybe not legit road rides, but 30
Como street loop.
30 plus mile type of loops on a road bike, only because they can't ride on the trail these days, right?
Yeah.
And that type of fitness is different than mountain fitness. It's very helpful, but it's different. Yeah.
Very cardio.
It's very cardio, and I find myself thinking on these rides, man, I don't know how people do this. as their primary means, right?
Right.
Like this is their enjoyment.
They identify as roadies.
Yeah.
But you got to go to the spot, right? You got to go to the spot to do the roadie.
Yeah.
Are you riding in a group or are you riding solo?
I was riding solo. Yeah. Yeah. I don't find myself being able to ride with the roadie groups. Sometimes I come on them or they come on me, and then I try to be friendly or try to blend in, and maybe I just don't fit the profile.
Your glasses are probably on the inside of your helmet straps or something.
That is very true.
The cargo shorts don't help. I think.
Cargo shorts don't help. That is true.
Oh, sorry. I got to ask you this before I forget. The jeans that you get, which cut do you get?
Oh gosh, it'll come to me. The looser cut.
Okay.
I'm wearing them now.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think it's the automatic.
Okay.
I think not the sharp.
Okay. What's the brand again?
RevTown.
RevTown. Okay.
I need one looser than that even.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't have a pair, but
Boyfriend cut.
boyfriend cut is how they call it.
When it's really baggy.
Yeah.
That's kind of a term from the fashion industry.
Awesome. I need that.
Not the dad cut, the boyfriend cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not wear my dad's jeans.
Oh my God.
That's right. Yeah. Anyways. Let's see. Man, I have a comment here and I don't even know how to transition to it, but did you used to do spoken word?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do spoken word.
How does that fit in with content creation, or where did that come from? And
It's weirdly kind of similar in that it's just taking experience and putting it through a process and churning out a product, which might be a spoken word piece.
You'd go to a jazz club or
Yeah.
rap.
Like
So
a coffee house.
you'd write basically a rap or a poem.
Yeah, poem.
Depending on how you
usually,
look at it.
Yeah.
And
poem or
spit
rap?
some lyrics, but calmly.
It was more more poem, prosy, poemy.
Like a very, very calm hip hop song.
Yeah, yeah. But I never really rhymed much. There were
Right.
internal rhymes and
Okay,
stuff
sure,
like that.
sure.
But yeah, it was very kind of beat kind of stuff.
Wow. Local, like here in Southern California type of thing? What you
Yeah.
got here?
I read Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Ginsberg, Kerouac, all those cats. Yeah, it started kind of in a little coffee house in Redlands, like where I live. And then sometimes we'd make trips out to LA and do the readings out here. And I did one paid gig. Yeah. It was mostly just kind of like open mic kind of stuff, or
Right.
like just you kind of sign up. But we had enough, like me, I had like a small crew from Redlands. And just a quick little story, like because we were in Redlands and we were scrappy, i.e. dirtbags out there and just hungry, we'd go out to LA and just destroy, because we were coming with a different tone and we were way more just like hungry, I think. And so like we would sign up on the sheet and make sure we were like one after each other, and then like 3 or 4 of us would just like take the house down. And then like after a little while, a couple of like LA people were like, hey, we really like you guys, like we're gonna do a paid show over here, like come over. So it had like a small little moment in the spoken word.
You still involved in that scene at all?
Mm-mm.
Just kind of faded away for you?
Yeah. I got into like music, making music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What instruments do you play?
It started with like guitar, but then I got into like keyboards and sampling and digital stuff, and then got weird and just started. I don't even know how to explain it. Like for instance, at a certain point, I had like a record player that had the rubber mat taken off, so it was just metal, and then I had like stuff taped to it, and then like it rotating, and then the arm like going over the stuff was making a rhythm, and then like that was my beat. And then I would had samples, and I don't know.
That's creative.
It was just like it got kind of
That's
crazy.
cool.
And then I started like sampling stuff in the room, like stuff that was happening in the room, and like incorporating that into it. So yeah.
Wow.
Can
Do
we
you
find
still do
this
that
anywhere?
at all?
Not really. I think I have a couple of tracks somewhere on SoundCloud, but yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Spoken word. Yeah. How did you hear about that?
I don't know.
Somehow it showed up.
Yeah.
We have this shared show notes document. It's in there.
We should have asked you to prepare something. Maybe next time.
Yeah. Maybe next time.
That would be great. I mean, for sure, we got to have you on it again.
Yeah.
This has been super enjoyable for me.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. Is that a whole podcast already?
It might be.
You got everything off your chest you wanted to get off your chest?
No, I've saved some for next time.
Good. Excellent. All right.
That's
Well,
great.
thanks, Alan. Thanks, Auk. Thank you, listeners, and thanks to our crew and everyone. Let's all remember to love the bike we ride.